In 2015, a crime shook the conscience of America. A promising Stanford athlete, a victim left unconscious behind a dumpster, and a court sentence that sparked outrage worldwide. This is the case of Brock Turner, one that redefined how we talk about sexual assault, privilege, and justice. It was January 18, 2015, a chilly winter night at Stanford University. Students flocked to fraternity houses, chasing the usual weekend routine: music, alcohol, laughter, and careless abandon. But for two strangers, this night would cross paths in a way that neither could have imagined. One would become a survivor of a crime that shocked the nation. The other, a convicted felon whose name would become synonymous with privilege and outrage. The victim, later revealed to be Chanel Miller, was 22 years old. That night, she accompanied her younger sister to a party. She wasn't a Stanford student, just visiting, just another face in the crowd. Like many others, she drank heavily. By the end of the night, she was too intoxicated to stand, let alone give consent. On the other side of the party was Brock Turner, only 19 years old, a Stanford freshman, and a promising star athlete on the swim team. Newspapers would later remind us of his Olympic dreams, his achievements, and his speed in the water. But on this night, none of that mattered, because this night wasn't about swimming. It was about a choice he made behind a dumpster outside the fraternity house. Sometime after midnight, witnesses would later testify that Brock Turner led an unconscious Chanel outside. She wasn't moving. She wasn't aware. Behind the fraternity house, near a dumpster, Brock began to sexually assault her. But fate intervened. Two Swedish graduate students, biking home that night, noticed movement in the shadows. What they saw horrified them. A young man on top of a motionless woman. Her hair spread across the dirt. Her body still. His hands where they should never have been. The students shouted, causing Brock to flee. But they weren't about to let him go. They chased him down, tackled him to the ground, and held him there until police arrived. These strangers, two men who didn't even know Chanel, became the crucial reason the assault didn't disappear into the silence of the night. Chanel was rushed to the hospital, still unconscious, unaware that her body had been violated. She would wake up hours later, not knowing the horror she had survived. Meanwhile, Brock Turner was taken into custody. His mugshot would soon circle the globe, but not yet. For now, it was just a police report, a crime scene, and two very different lives changed forever. When police filed their reports that night in January 2015, it seemed like a straightforward case. A crime witnessed, a suspect caught, evidence collected. Yet what followed would ignite one of the loudest national conversations about sexual assault in American history. The suspect, 19-year-old Brock Turner, faced 3 felony charges: assault with intent to commit rape, sexual penetration of an unconscious person, and sexual penetration of an intoxicated person. From the very beginning, the case wasn't just about facts. It was about perception. The media highlighted Turner's status: Stanford swimmer, Olympic hopeful, bright future. But what about Chanel Miller, the woman who woke up in a hospital bed, only to be told she had been assaulted? The trial began in March 2016. Prosecutors presented a clear narrative. Turner had assaulted an unconscious woman, caught in the act by 2 eyewitnesses. The defense countered with the claim that the encounter had been consensual, a claim the evidence strongly contradicted. Chanel's voice, though anonymous as Emily Doe, was carried into the courtroom through her testimony. She described the fog of waking up, the humiliation of medical exams, the fear of facing her attacker. The testimony of the 2 Swedish students was damning. They recalled Chanel's limp body, her silence, and Brock's attempt to run. For the jury, the picture was undeniable. Turner was found guilty on all counts. Justice, it seemed, had been served, but the real shock was yet to come. In June 2016, Judge Aaron Persky sentenced Turner to 6 months in county jail, with probation. He would serve only 3. The judge explained that a longer sentence would have a severe impact on Turner's future. The public erupted in outrage. Too many. This wasn't just about one man. It was about a system that valued an athlete's potential more than a woman's pain. Critics called it a symbol of rape culture, a culture where victims are doubted, perpetrators are excused, and justice bends for the privileged. Within days, Chanel Miller's victim impact statement, 12 pages of raw, searing truth, was published online. It spread like wildfire, read by over 11 million people in just 4 days. Her words forced the world to feel her fear, her shame, her courage. For survivors everywhere, it was a rallying cry. Before sentencing, The court gave Chanel Miller, still known to the world only as Emily Doe, a chance to speak. What she delivered was not just a statement, it was a weapon of truth, and a voice for millions who had been silenced. For 20 minutes, Chanel stood in that courtroom, trembling but unbroken, and described the aftermath of her assault in brutal, honest detail. She spoke of the humiliation of waking up in a hospital room, the invasive exams, the isolation, and the weight of carrying a crime she never asked for. She told the court, "You took away my worth, my privacy, my energy, my time, my intimacy, my confidence, my own voice." When her words were published by BuzzFeed, they traveled far beyond the courtroom. In just 4 days, Chanel's letter was read over 11 million times. Politicians, celebrities, parents, and survivors called it one of the most powerful victim impact statements ever written. She was anonymous, faceless, but her words gave identity to millions. Survivors who had never spoken out before found the courage to share their own stories. It was no longer just about Brock Turner. It was about a system that routinely failed victims, and a culture that often protected predators. Her statement also fueled the outrage against Judge Aaron Persky. If the justice system wouldn't protect survivors, the public would act. Campaigns began to recall Persky from office, and for the first time in more than 80 years, a California judge was removed by voters. 3 years later, Chanel chose to reveal her identity to the world. In 2019, she published her memoir, Know My Name. No longer Emily Doe, she stepped into the light as Chanel Miller, an artist, a writer, and a survivor whose words transformed pain into power. Her courage turned the case into a movement, a reminder that behind every headline, every statistic, is a person, and that silence is never the answer. The case was over, but its impact had only just begun. Brock Turner was released after serving just 3 months of his 6-month sentence. His swimming career was over, his name permanently tied to one of the most controversial sentences in American history. And while Turner walked free, Chanel Miller's words continued to echo around the world. Public fury focused not only on Turner but also on Judge Aaron Persky. Activists argued that his lenient sentence sent a dangerous message, that privilege mattered more than justice. In 2018, voters in California made history. Persky became the first judge recalled in the state in more than 80 years. The people had spoken. Leniency for sexual assault was no longer acceptable. Across America, the Brock Turner case sparked reforms. States began reconsidering sentencing guidelines for sexual assault. Lawmakers pushed for stricter minimum sentences. The case became a rallying cry for a movement already gaining momentum, the fight against rape culture. In 2019, Chanel Miller stepped out from behind the name Emily Doe and claimed her story as her own. Her memoir, Know My Name, was hailed as a masterpiece, a declaration of survival, resilience, and truth. No longer faceless, she became a symbol of courage for survivors worldwide. Her book won awards, but more importantly, it inspired change. In classrooms, in courtrooms, and in conversations at dinner tables, people began asking harder questions about consent, about accountability, and about the failures of the justice system. The story of Brock Turner and Chanel Miller was never just about one crime on one night. It was about the imbalance of power, the culture of silence, and the fight to be heard. Turner's sentence was short, but Chanel's impact will last for generations. Chanel Miller's courage turned tragedy into a movement, reminding the world that silence is deadly, and justice must never be optional. Her story continues to inspire survivors everywhere. If this case moved you, don't let the conversation stop here. Hit the like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe with the bell on so you never miss the next true crime documentary, because every story deserves to be heard.